Greetings and welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismember pop culture in all its forms. 2025 has left us all asking questions about the future of Hollywood in general, and superhero/comic book movies in particular. With several underperforming blockbuster films this year, and an overall underperforming box office, it looks as though the superhero genre is dying, or is already dead. Is it over? Is the MCU finished? Is this my last Marvel video ever? Before we begin, please take a second to hit that subscribe button, help us grow the channel, and don't forget to like and share the video if you're enjoying the content. Now let's get into it. Since I started this channel, Marvel content has definitely dominated my output. Just this year we've had 3 feature films, starting with Captain America Brave New World, a poorly received box office bomb, then the Thunderbolts, aka the New Avengers, a well-received box office bomb, and finally Fantastic Four First Steps, which may or may not end up being a very well-received box office bomb. In addition to these 3 movies, Marvel also released Daredevil Born Again and the Ironheart series on the Disney Plus streaming platform. Now, Daredevil was not totally awful, though it was kind of a mess and was very obviously chopped up and rather hastily pieced together after the original showrunners were fired and a new showrunner was brought in to try and salvage it. It ended up being extremely mid in the end. Ironheart, on the other hand, ranks very near the worst thing Marvel has ever produced, and by all accounts, Marvel knew it sucked before it even released it, as evidenced by the fact that it sat on a shelf for years after production had wrapped, and they dropped the entire show quietly in a single week, with very little promotion or fanfare. I honestly won't be surprised if they give Ironheart the Willow treatment and totally remove it from Disney Plus in the coming months, thus erasing it from history. At the same time we've been inundated with Marvel products being released pretty much every few weeks, they've also begun to try and build hype around Avengers Doomsday. There have been a few press events, a teaser trailer, and there was even that 5-hour live stream of empty chairs a few months ago, highlighting the names of the all-star cast, dozens of them, that are appearing in the new team-up movie, which also stars a recast Robert Downey Jr. and brings back the Russo brothers to write and direct. Judging by the size of the cast, the enormous contract they baited Robert Downey Jr. with, reportedly paying him more than $80 million to appear in Avengers Doomsday and its planned sequel, Secret Wars, and the anticipated scope of the movie, Doomsday will possibly be the most expensive movie ever produced. Now, I'm guessing that the production budget is going to be very nearly $500 million, if not more. They need this movie to be huge. And of course, there's a lot of discussion about what needs to happen, and what is expected to happen for the MCU to continue forward into the next generation. Essentially, Doomsday, which will be followed closely by Avengers Secret Wars, will close out Phase 6 of the MCU, which also closes out the expansive, sprawling, unfocused, and mostly failed multiverse saga. And it's expected that the entire universe will then be completely rebooted, first introducing the X-Men, and mutants in general, into the MCU officially, and likely recasting most, if not all, of the other characters. And honestly, that's probably what needs to happen. More on that later. But to get there, Marvel needs some momentum. They need some wins. They need some financial success. They need to build excitement for a brand that, just a few years ago, could not produce a movie that wasn't anticipated and praised. Nearly every entry in the Infinity Saga was a raging success, and every new movie was exciting, with anticipation growing as the saga neared its climax. Well, not anymore. Not since Endgame, really, with a few fleeting exceptions. So, partly because of the glut of content demanded by Disney Plus, and the resulting drop in oversight and quality control, and partly due to the unforced errors of Disney wading recklessly into the culture wars, leaning into identity politics and political messaging, most of the entries into the franchise have been abject failures, with Marvel losing money at almost every turn. So things got so bad at Disney that in 2022, Bob Chapek, who had replaced a retiring Bob Iger in 2020, was suddenly and summarily fired on a Sunday night while he was attending the AMAs, and Bob Iger was brought out of retirement to right the ship at Disney. Thereafter, there were quite a few layoffs and a promise to abandon the DEI and social messaging agendas in favor of returning Disney to its roots, family entertainment. And the results have been, thus far, well, mixed. As it concerns Marvel in particular, there have been signs that things are improving, marginally. I mean, the decision to bring back both Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers was at least an acknowledgement that they needed to return to the old ways. And both the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four have been better than most of the garbage produced since 2019. Indeed, the decision to fire the showrunners on Daredevil Born Again and bring in Dario Scardapane, who had worked on the Punisher show on Netflix, was regarded as a promising development and showed that Marvel is at least listening to advice and criticism, embracing the Netflix shows they had previously ignored. The troubling result, though, is that all of these things have underperformed, despite positive reviews and good word of mouth. Thunderbolts was praised as awesome, easily one of the best MCU movies in a long time, visually daring and emotionally resonant. And while I think Thunderbolts is a bit overrated, and I never trust the Access Media's opinion on anything, I mean, Shang-Chi's Rotten Tomatoes score is sitting at 92, while Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is an 82.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
But it wasn't bad. Definitely better than most of the post-Endgame trash. That's not really a compliment in and of itself. I mean, a root canal is better than most post-Endgame trash, but not bad. Florence Pugh had a few good scenes, David Harbour is mostly likable, and Lewis Pullman turned in a compelling performance. Audiences agreed the movie was pretty good. One of the best MCU films in a long time, potentially signaling a return to form for Marvel, yada yada yada. The problem is that even with the media's praise, along with general audience goodwill and continued positive word of mouth, the box office fell off a cliff after the opening weekend and never recovered. It went on to earn only $383 million on a reported production budget, usually not entirely accurate, of about $200 million. It thus lost the studio money, and it also ranks as one of the lowest grossing MCU movies ever. Similarly, Fantastic Four First Steps, which is still in theaters, was praised as a solid, intelligent, and occasionally inspired comic book film. It's heartfelt, action-packed, and just plain fun, and the best Marvel movie in years. So once again, generally praised by both critics and audiences, and this time I actually agree with most of the praise. It is one of the best Marvel movies in years. I actually ranked it at number 18 in my MCU ranking, which puts it in pretty good company. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the movie, even with the omnipresent Pedro Pascal wearing on my nerves. Even the themes of family and hope and self-sacrifice seemed fresh and at odds with much of the recent Hollywood output. Unfortunately, once again, this movie has also failed to reach its expectations. Although as it is quickly nearing the $500 million mark, it's at least better than the other recent flops, and depending on the accuracy of production budget estimates, it may even turn a teeny tiny Herbie-sized profit. But they wanted so much more. They needed so much more. They needed this to be a summer blockbuster event, and it wasn't. Hell, the summer box office as a whole was kind of a letdown for the industry. So what does this mean? Is the MCU dead? Hell, judging by the other lackluster returns, such as Superman and even Jurassic World, is Hollywood dead? Will this be my last Marvel video as the MCU folds up and disappears into cinematic history? So focusing on the MCU, and this may be applicable to the DCU as well, the first thing we must acknowledge is the concept of superhero fatigue. Is the massive quantity of comic book movies simply driving audiences away? Well, maybe. Perhaps there is some fatigue for superhero films setting in, at least among the general population, so-called casual fans. I mean, it happens in every genre, and I don't think we've ever seen a genre that was so oversaturated as comic book movies have become over the past 20 years. But I don't think this is the only concern, even if it is a major one. What about just too much bad, boring, or mediocre content? Well, almost certainly. Having so many awful movies in the past few years, from both Marvel and DC, including Black Widow, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, The Marvels, Captain African American, Black Adam, Wonder Woman 84, Birds of Prey, Blue Beetle, The Flash, and don't even get me started about the giant pile of shit that's been dumped onto Disney+.
That is one big pile of shit.
Nearly all of which was practically unwatchable. Yeah, this deluge of shitty content not only drives away the casuals, but it also tends to turn away more serious fans. You have to put out good content to keep fans interested, even the diehards. But this goes hand in hand with too much content in general. You almost always sacrifice quality for quantity, so make fewer movies and shows and exercise more editorial control. Hopefully this will address both of those concerns at once. Another problem in the post-Endgame movie business is one I don't hear people talking about nearly as much as the other factors. Theaters are just too expensive. I took my kids to see Superman over the summer. Me and 3 kids. We each got a regular drink, no popcorn, no candy, just tickets and drinks, and it cost me $135. That is obscenely expensive for a family movie outing. And we went in the afternoon. So I think a lot of people, especially families, just can't afford to go to the movies like they used to. I think what you get then is families kind of picking maybe 1 or 2 movies to see over the summer. And when I was a kid, we went to see everything. Almost literally, there was a time when I had seen every movie that was playing in the theater. We would just show up at the cinema and decide what to watch when we got there. We can't do that anymore. I think people are just much more selective now, and when you have a season with several big blockbusters, you're going to get a dilution in box office sales, regardless of the quality of the movies that are playing. So all of these things undoubtedly have an impact on the profitability of superhero movies, for sure. But there's something else that we have to accept, like it or not. The era of every Marvel movie being a contender for a $1 billion box office run may just be over. Because the casual fans seem to be less interested in the genre than they were, and the characters, actors, and stories just aren't capturing the pop culture zeitgeist like they were a few years ago, it may be time to scale down expectations, which also means scaling back production budgets. I mean, there has got to be a way to spend less than $250 million or more on every movie, regardless of the character or story. The Marvels, for instance, a story about secondary characters that practically no one had heard of, had a budget of over $300 million. That's insanity.
Black girl magic!
One of the highest rated movies in recent years was Godzilla Minus One out of Japan. This movie not only scored high on critical and audience reviews, it also won an Oscar for visual effects, and it only had a budget of about $15 million. Now, I know the industry is very different in Japan than it is here, but still, maybe we can get some pointers? I mean, I guess they could start by telling smaller stories for one. Not every comic book arc ends in a galaxy-ending cosmic showdown that requires 100 million plus of visual effects. Make movies with more practical effects and location shoots and employ cinematography tricks to reduce reliance on CGI. And there's just got to be other things they can do to lower budgets. Whatever it takes, budgets for the smaller entries, the standalone character movies, shouldn't be more than about $100 million. I mean, just look at the movies that came out this year. Captain America, it made $415 million. The Thunderbolts made almost $400 million. And the Fantastic Four is probably going to break $500 million. Now, those are big numbers. Most movies that make $400 million are considered blockbuster hits. And if the budgets were around that $100 million figure, they would turn a pretty big profit. I know it's not the $1 billion profit they pine for, but consistently turning out movies that make $50 to $100 million apiece should be fine. Certainly better than what they have lately, with almost every movie losing $100 million or more. And use these smaller scale stories to build out the universe, develop compelling characters, both heroes and villains, and build excitement for the big team-up spectacles like the Avengers movies. You can still go all out on those, and if you spent the time and effort developing the characters and laying the groundwork for the big events, these can still be your $1 billion plus blockbuster events. Do that, lower your budgets and your expectations, and also scale back the quantity of movies to 1, maybe 2 films per year, focusing on quality storytelling, character building, and build up to the big team-up crossover events every couple of years. Do that, and you will most likely be profitable again. It might not ever get back to the levels of the Infinity Saga, and that's okay. That was a generational phenomenon of which we've never seen its equal. But Marvel and DC and superheroes in general have a dedicated core audience that will always watch superhero movies as long as you 1, tell good stories, 2, honor the source material, and 3, respect the characters and the audience. This is something that Hollywood has seriously forgotten in recent years. You can win us back if you just adapt the stories faithfully and treat us with respect.
Shut up. Just shut up. You had me at hello.
and focus on stories from the golden age through about the early 2000s. Forget about the all-new, all-different era of Marvel and probably the new 52 era of DC. Maybe the comics divisions will start creating good content again eventually, but most of the stuff from about 2015 onward is hot ass, and nobody likes it. The comic book industry is practically defunct because no one buys the shitty comics that are being written. So leave those alone. There are tons and tons of good classic stories yet to be told from the times before all new, all different. Use them. Do these things, and it is possible to save the MCU. As stated earlier, it may take some time, and you have to do it slowly and deliberately. I think the next 18 months will be a sort of test run. The next big superhero movie, Marvel anyway, will be Spider-Man 4, which is set to premiere next summer, almost an entire year from now. That should be a nice long break for everyone, which may by itself build some excitement. The fact that it's Spider-Man, following the massive success of the previous Spider-Man movie, No Way Home, will add even more to that excitement. I suspect it'll be a huge success, almost definitely breaking $1 billion. Then comes Avengers Doomsday. If it remains on schedule, it's set to drop next December. Again, that's a pretty decent break, which can only be a positive. The fact that it's a huge team-up Avengers movie, the first since Endgame, which will be 7 years by the time Doomsday comes out, is a big plus. The fact that Robert Downey Jr. and the Russos are back adds more hype, and depending on the marketing, the excitement of bringing in the X-Men, including the classic X-Men, is sure to build some more excitement. I don't think this movie will have any trouble making $1 billion either, although I suspect its budget is so big, $1 billion may not even be enough to break even. After Doomsday, I believe Secret Wars is scheduled for the following year. I don't know what else is planned in 2027, but if Secret Wars is all alone, and Doomsday was well received, Secret Wars will probably do big money as well. After that, total reboot incoming. And I would let it breathe. Let another year go by before anything is released in the new universe. And then take it slow, one film at a time. 1 to 2 per year at most. Lower your production budgets, make more intimate stories, focus on world and character building. And maybe the MCU will reach the next generation. So, while I don't think this is my last Marvel video ever, I do believe that the amount of videos from me and other creators will likely see a reduction in volume in the coming years. At least if these film studios follow the same path, releasing less content. If they do slow down and focus on quality storytelling, less open hostility to the fan base, and reining in budgets, I believe the superhero genre will continue to be viable and healthy for years to come. And it should. Superhero stories are, after all, hero stories. They are timeless. Humans have been fascinated and captivated by stories of heroes for as long as stories have existed. From Gilgamesh to Achilles to Odysseus, all the way through to the modern-day heroes of Superman, Spider-Man, or John Wick, the hero's journey has helped shape stories for millennia, and it's typified by modern superhero adaptations. Humans want to root for a hero. We want to see strong characters struggle and grow and ponder moral dilemmas and overcome adversity. So if you just get back to telling compelling, heroic stories, the audience will return. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think Marvel and DC can salvage the superhero genre? Why do you think its popularity has been waning in recent years? Join the conversation in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye for now. We hope to see you next time in the Culture Ward.